Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our MS PhD and PhD program in biomedical engineering at Columbia University. My name is Helen, and I will be your host today. I am the department's academic and student affairs manager. Joining me today is Professor Henry Hess, our chair of graduate studies, Ms. Kristen Henlon, our career placement officer, and we also have 4 current doctoral candidates that joined us today. I'll let them self-introduce, starting with Ms. Rebecca Noel.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Noel. I'm going into my second year here at Columbia. My research is focused on applications of focused ultrasound in neurodegenerative disease, especially Alzheimer's, and I work in Dr. Lisa Kanafagu's lab.
Hi, I'm Kenzie. I am entering my 3rd year in my PhD, and my lab focuses on the tendon to bone attachment, biomechanics, and injury. We're an orthopedic biomechanics lab, so we have a joint appointment in the orthopedic surgery department. And my PI is Steve Thermopoulos.
Hi, I'm Kristen, and I'm entering my 4th year, and I'm in Chi Wang's lab, the Neural Control and Engineering lab, and we focus on how sensory processing is affected by brain state and behavior state.
Hi, I'm Divya. I'm a second year in Dr. Cam Leong's lab, and my research focuses on developing nanotherapeutics for cancer and chronic pain.
Great, thank you. And so today our rundown is that Professor Henry Hess will give you an overview of our department. Ms. Kristen Henlon will talk about the career resources we have available for our doctoral students specifically. I myself will talk about the degree requirements for both the MS PhD and PhD program. Our graduate student life topic will be presented by Ms. Rebecca Noel, and Mackenzie, also Divya and Kristen will talk more about our student organizations. I will conclude today's info session with admission requirements and the process we have in place for PhD candidate selections. Now, without further ado, we'll head into the department overview. Before I hand over the mic over to Professor Henry Hess, we'll go into a quick video about our department.
Biomedical engineering at Columbia University is highly interdisciplinary and encompasses research expertise across the whole university. Our department also emphasizes solving real-life complex biological and medical problems. In other words, engineering for healthy humanity.
A biomedical engineer typically has a plethora of skills that span life sciences and biology, traditional engineering. Our people have to have an appreciation for socioeconomical concerns, right? Especially, say, our teams that are working in low resource settings, but all of our groups have to be cognizant of the entrepreneurial aspects. So a BME is a hybrid engineer.
Columbia University is fortunate to have a top medical school, so it's an incredibly rich and diverse opportunity to cross-pollinate engineering principles with the needs of medicine.
We are in a lab for stem cells and tissue engineering. We are now capable to repair organs and parts of the human body. We are becoming much more sophisticated now with our designs of the biological systems. So you can make a whole set of very small size organs and tissues from an individual on a chip. And you can do testing in a patient-specific way. So when we talk today about precision medicine, this is one of the most effective directions in which this area is going.
I'm part of the Zuckerman Institute at Columbia. It's the Mind-Brain Behavior Institute, and we're really trying to understand the brain from every possible angle. In my lab, we develop new microscopes and new ways to image the brain and other living tissues. Imaging in particular, biomedical imaging, really spans a huge range of disciplines. And quite uniquely, I think, we extend our techniques quite often into studies of disease. So we're studying stroke, we're studying brain development, we're studying Alzheimer's. Neuroscience is continually changing and requires this really rapid adoption and leveraging of new tools.
The work that we do is really about trying to work on the cancer problem, and that fits into Columbia Engineering for Humanity. What we do in the lab is try to program bacteria by engineering their DNA, and then we will actually put them together with cancer cells and visualize them under the microscope to see how their interactions behave. And so we are very interested in the process of visualization itself, whether it's through the microscope or by staining them in different colors. The visualizations can specifically help inspire new ways to try and detect and treat cancer.
All this work is really very heavily based on effective collaboration of people from many different areas, because our approach to biology, to tissue engineering, to building new technologies is very holistic.
Our faculty are very much engaged with the students. We depend upon the students. They're the lifeblood of our laboratories, for example. It allows them to have an impact and actually to affect humanity, to affect patients, to save lives.
I've seen our students go on to incredibly diverse careers, from medicine to being patent lawyers, to being investors, to working for Doctors Without Borders. And I characterize them as being people who are ready for a challenge, who are ready to say, well, I don't know much about heart valves, but give me a couple of days and I'll read up on it.
Okay, Professor Hess, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Helen. It's my great pleasure to introduce the department to you. And as you saw in the beautiful movie, you can study the whole range of biomedical engineering in this department, from bioinformatics and machine learning over cancer biology and cell and tissue engineering, all the way to neural engineering and robotics. Next slide, please. Our program is now ranked number 9 among the biomedical engineering programs in the nation. And we have 23 well-funded faculty, several of whom are in the National Academy of Engineering and the National Academy of Medicine. And many of them are engaged as editors of scientific journals, and many of them are faculty, are fellows in the American Institute for Medical and Biological Engineering. Next slide, please. Now, these 23 faculty members educate about a class of 40 to 50 undergraduate students every year, about 80 incoming master students every year, and over 20 to 30 new doctoral students every year. So you come in as a significant cohort of students pursuing either the master's or the PhD degree. And among these 153 doctoral students who are currently in the program, more than a dozen have external and internal fellowships. Next slide, please. Now, our department has always been concerned with diversity, equity, and inclusion, but this year we have, as many other departments have, placed it much more front and center and formalized our efforts by founding a dedicated committee for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And on the slide, you can see the mission statement for this committee. And our goal is to advance diversity, and a big part of these efforts is to reach out into the surrounding community. And next slide, please. And two existing efforts are the HK Maker Lab, directed by Professor Aaron Kyle, who runs a summer program serving high school students from New York City from low-income communities, and also the Youth Sports Lab, directed by Professor Katie Rufer, which is a week-long summer program for middle school students. Now, we've just received a new grant to expand our outreach efforts. Next slide, please. And the plan there is to not just bring students to the department, but also have our students come to the schools and introduce middle and high school students to the idea of becoming an engineer. And I think this will be a very interesting effort in the future, which you may be able to participate. And I want to end here and turn it over to Ms. Kristen Henlin, who's our career placement officer and can acquaint you with the resources available to Columbia BME students.
Professor Hess. My name is Kristen Henlin. I am the Career Placement Officer for the BME department. So I work with graduate and undergraduate students to help them find internships, full-time opportunities, and just to assist them with overall career development. So I'm just going to give you a bit of information about the resources that I offer our students. Next slide, please. So in regards to the ways that I help students, there are a few ways that I help graduate students. So I provide resume and CV feedback, as well as cover letter assistance, and then I help students with mock interviews. I also help students find alumni in different companies around New York, as well as other states in the US, so that students feel that they can connect to others who have done the BME program and to see where they are. I also host information sessions and networking opportunities, which are now all virtual. Next slide, please. So another platform that we use to help connect students with jobs is a Canvas page, which is an online job board where I post jobs pretty much every day, as well as information sessions. And the jobs are segmented by different regions. So we've got them the Northeast, the West Coast, Midwest, and the South, as well as a few international opportunities. So all of the virtual fairs, virtual information sessions, and panel discussions are all posted on this page, and you can access them via Zoom links. Next slide, please. I just wanted to give you a bit of insight about where some of our PhD students have gone in the past. As you can imagine, they've gone to lots of different places, but this is just a snapshot of where some of our students have gone. We see a lot of our students who end up doing research science, but there are also a lot of PhD students who end up going into consulting. You can see that there are also alums who are creating their own companies, so they're CEOs or co-founders of companies, as well as students who decide to do postdocs or pursue a more computational route and do data science within the health field. Next slide, please. I also wanted to just highlight a really interesting program that the Dean's Office in Graduate Student Affairs has created for the PhD population at SEAS. So we have a PDL course, which is called Professional Development and Leadership, which we have offered to master's students for several years, but now we're opening up to PhD students. So first year PhD students are immersed in a one week long program in August, where they take classes about micro-teaching, are taught how to grade and hold office hours, as well as how to cultivate relationships with other faculty members. And we discuss issues regarding budgeting, how to stay well and have a healthy life, given your background in research, and how it's really important to find that balance. And so this is a really useful resource for PhD students. It's completely free, and it is offered at every stage of your PhD, but the first year PhD experience is unique. And so it's really a great tool for PhD students who want to learn a little bit more about how to balance the process. So next slide, please. Now I'll hand it over to Helen Sen, the Academic and Student Affairs Manager. It's nice to speak to all of you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. And so right now I'm going to talk a little bit about the different degree requirements. So as you're aware, we have two different degree levels. One is the MS PhD, and the other is PhD only. So the MS PhD program is primarily for students who are entering our doctoral program without a master's degree in place. And so at the beginning of their studies, they will actually complete our master's degree requirements. These requirements are the same as our master's only students, and so that includes 30 credits of studies, approximately 10 classes there. There are 3 required classes. So one of them is BME 6003, Computational Modeling of Physiological Systems, and one graduate level applied math course. The other required class is what we call graduate seminar. You're required to take it for 2 semesters. However, it's a 0 credit course, but still it's very useful for students to learn more about the different field areas and the research that is taking place across the country. We do invite professors from across the nation to speak to our students every Friday. And then the remainder of the courses are elective courses, 4 of which elective courses has to be BME graduate classes, meaning that they have to be offered by our department. And then the remainder, 3 can be in the engineering school, any department within the engineering school as long as it's graduate level. And then you have 1 class that you can actually take outside of the engineering school. And so that composes all the 10 classes that you're required to take. Worthy of noting is a lot of our doctoral students prefer to take 3 credits of master's research in their first semester and 3 in their second semester as well, providing them more time to be in the lab, get settled in with the research they will be conducting in their lab. And so after you conclude your master's studies, you'll enter your PhD requirements. And so this PhD requirements is the same for PhD only students as well. It requires you to complete 30 credits beyond your master's degree. However, you can see here, if your advisor approves you, up to 21 credits can be research credits. So you're really taking 9 credits of instructional coursework. Certainly there are times where if your research requires or if your advisor sees an academic knowledge gap between your coursework and the research that they want you to conduct, they'll ask you to take more instructional coursework in that sense. So students who have their master's degree completed, they will actually get 2 credits of residence units. A total of 6 residence unit is required for the doctoral degree, and that's mainly what the school uses to help you maintain full-time status. All of our doctoral students are required to maintain full-time, and so residence units is a way to maintain full-time status for our doctoral students. Other requirements are 2 semesters of TAing and a qualifying exam. Qualifying exam is typically taken after the student completes their first year of studies. And so that's the same for MS PhD students or PhD only students. They typically will take this exam after they conclude their first year with us. Now, after you complete all of this requirement, it's a huge milestone, and you will receive your Master's of Philosophy degree after you complete all of this requirements. It's a major milestone because after you have all of this done and out of the way, what is left is your dissertation requirements, right? So here you can see an overview of typically 5 years of studies with us as a doctoral student. So in terms of dissertation requirements, students typically will do their thesis proposal in their 4th year of studies. And they will work very closely with their advisor to determine their thesis and the process, how it will be completed, and they will collaborate closely with each other as well to determine when they will defend. Some students may defend earlier if they earlier than the 5th year if they enter with a master's degree. Some students may defend a little bit over their 5th year, depending on their research progress, the rigorous level of the research they are involved with, things like that. So typically our students will graduate from the program in an average around 5 years. And so without further ado, I will pass the mic over to Ms. Rebecca Noel to talk a little bit about the fun things that happen in our department.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Helen. Hi, everyone. So as I mentioned again, my name is Rebecca Noel. I'm going into my 2nd year here at Columbia. I was a part of the MS2 PhD track and still am. So I can talk a little bit about what my experience has been like over the past just over 1 year now with Columbia BME. So if we could go to the next slide. Awesome. So one of the primary ways that I've gotten to know the cohort and experienced my time here at Columbia has been through the coursework. So as Helen went over in the overview, the 1st year of this program is definitely coursework intensive. So the focus has been largely on my classes for the 1st year. And so starting in lecture halls and finishing up last year and starting off this year in the Zoom room has been an interesting experience, but throughout I've gotten to know my cohort and my fellow students largely through our coursework. So whether it's meeting up in classrooms, seeing my classmates in that way, debugging code together or working on problem sets, we've really had a lot of valuable time to learn and grow together in addition to getting to know one another as a cohort. And I remember when I was choosing my PhD program, the cohort and the community of the school was something that was extremely important to me. Of course, the topics and research and coursework opportunities were primary, but having so many opportunities to get to know and collaborate with my colleagues was something that was critical to me. Just want to point out, so this group photo on the bottom was taken from one morning of the seminar. So that has been one of my cohort's favorite things in the world, was getting to come together every week, even when our research and our eventually coursework was so diverse and different. This was sort of an opportunity to come together every week, see each other, see our friends, circle back up, and also hear about some awesome research from other schools and sort of like the state of the art in other departments as well. Next slide. So research has, of course, been another huge part of my experience here so far. So I've been so thankful. One of the primary reasons that I was interested in Columbia was a close affiliation with medical research, and being that my lab is actually in the New York Presbyterian Hospital could not be easier to translate from what happens in a culture well in a petri dish into the clinic. And so sort of just the full spectrum. The fluorescence images at the top are from an in vitro experiment that I was doing, so just purely cells. And then the bottom photo was actually taken last week when my lab treated our very first patient for an Alzheimer's focused ultrasound clinical trial. Could not be more thankful for the opportunities that Columbia has given me to translate the basic science that I'm learning and really interested in with regard to neuroscience, the brain, neurodegenerative diseases, and see how meaningful that work actually is when it can be translated into the clinic, and how the science sort of spans all of those different spaces. Next slide, please. So in addition to all of this classwork and research, Columbia also offers copious amounts of opportunities for extracurricular enrichment or fun things. So one of my favorite things to do this past year has been get involved with intramural sports. So we had an intramural soccer team called Seize the Goal. We had a couple different members from within Seize, and we played some soccer on the weekend. So intramural sports, I know, is also a favorite among like many members of our cohort. I chose soccer myself, but I know a lot of people are involved with volleyball, tons of other intramural sports. I also really enjoyed my experience in science outreach this year. So the bottom left photo was taken from Girls' Day, Science Girls' Day, where we brought in a bunch of middle school students and sort of just like did experiments with them, showed them how cool science can be. And it was awesome to have that opportunity through Columbia to interface with the community and sort of share our love of science with younger students. And then you'll hear more about this later, but Go BME has also been an excellent opportunity for me to get to know upperclassmen and get involved with some of the inner workings of the department and sort of have a hand in shaping what we do as a department and how we can support student lives. So next slide. Awesome. Like I said, community was one of the most important things to me when I was choosing a school, and I've had so much fun getting to know my cohort, both in Columbia sponsored ways and then also in other ways that are have been facilitated by Columbia. So getting to know other students. Next slide. So I also live in Columbia residential housing, and I could not be happier with the arrangements or more thankful for the opportunity to be here. As I said in the title, it's clean, safe, comfortable, and affordable way to live in New York City. My apartment is only a couple blocks from campus, so the location is fantastic. There's tons of space, and it makes it really easy and accessible to live in New York. There's a lot of unfortunate stories of tiny, like dirty New York apartments, and that hasn't at all been my experience in Columbia housing. So basically it's just like living in an apartment, but the rent is subsidized by Columbia. There's laundry facilities, and all of it is within reach of the campus. So as I mentioned, it's a couple blocks away, it's comfortable, safe and affordable. And so I couldn't ask for more out of my housing experience. Next slide. Awesome. Okay, so this is just one fun thing. When I was coming to New York, one of my favorite things to search out was the coffee shops in the area. So I've compiled my whole year and a half of research into this slide for your benefit, so feel free to screenshot. But if you're looking for a non-chain, or some of these are like smaller chain coffee shops to help fuel you through your late night study sessions or get you up in the morning, these have been some of my favorite on the Upper West. This is not sponsored, but just personal research sharing that. And so that's all that I wanted to say about my time and Columbia student experience. So.
Thanks, Rebecca. That was amazing. Very, very great representation of, I would say accurate also, of student life here. Can support a lot of the things that she had said. So I guess I'm next up in student organizations. I'm not really sure, what is the next slide? Yes, okay. So I'm the president of the Student Council in BME for graduate students. We're known as Go BME, or the Graduate Organization of Biomedical Engineers. And it's a really great experience being involved in this group because you have a lot of opportunities to be engaged in community building events such as happy hours, intramural sports. We actually organize team sports for the department. So we have typically a soccer team, which I've been on, a volleyball team, and a basketball team. So we really do a lot of work in trying to build a community and help our cohorts get to know each other through events and in sports. We also do outings occasionally, or suggest outings to people in the cohort, like hiking that's accessible on the train from the city, visits to museums, things like that. Another cool thing that this organization gets involved in is helping students with their academics in a variety of ways. So we have organized study breaks in the past where we just provide coffee, bagels, and a space for people to kind of decompress about finals or whatever is on their mind academically, and kind of talk to each other and help each other out. And we also help students prepare for their qualifying exams by hosting a workshop in the fall. And this year we host an extra one because of COVID circumstances. So we just try to support our PhD students in their qualifying exams as much as we can, and are there for advice, to provide advice as upperclassmen to underclassmen. We also host usually an NSF JRFP prep workshop or Q&A session every year too. So we're there as an organization to provide support and guidance in everything academic, whether it's research, quals prep, or fellowship applications. We also have we also try to get involved in the community as much as possible through philanthropy events. In the past, we've done food drives at our Thanksgiving yearly feast, which won't be happening this year, but hopefully next year. And we get involved in other community science outreach organizations such as BioBus and also CyRise mentorship program. So our students are very involved in philanthropy and charity organizations in the community. And I think that's a really great thing that we try to get involved in as a student group. So I have loved my experience so far in Go BME, and I really think that it's an important organization to advocate for student needs and to help build our community. So next slide. So this is just an example slide of some of the things that we do as a cohort. We have our annual holiday party, which is super fun. I went for the last like 3 years because I was also an undergrad here. So I've been at many holiday parties. It's just a great time. I'm sure it'll happen next year when things are more normal, but it's just, you realize that's the point that I always realize in the year. Like I just remember in the wake of all the like stress of the semester and like finals, you just have this night in this space where you're just like, wow, this community is incredible. Like these people are so great, and faculty are so nice. The students are so supportive and engaging and welcoming. And I don't know, it's just like a great reminder of that. And I love that. So and then our Thanksgiving event is on the top right, that we usually have every year. And we just like cater food and have a food drive as well to, again, like donate to the community. And then the bottom two are just examples of like things you end up doing around the city and exploring with your cohort, oftentimes like hiking, and there's adventure parks in Long Island. So we just like, I think as a community, BME gets really involved in the city, the community, and outside of us and within our BME department. So it's been a great experience and highly recommend. Next slide. Oh yeah, this is just intramurals again. This keeps coming up, but I've made some of my best friends in this program on intramural sports teams. And so I don't know, I'm very thankful for the fact that like we get to be involved in like organizing this and participating in it. The top right is our soccer team from my first year here, and we actually made it to the finals. And I don't know, it's a really fun experience. And those are, yeah, again, some of my best friends that I've made here. So we can go next slide. Okay, I guess I'm done. I think, right?
Yep, I'll take over. Thanks, Kenzie. So as I mentioned before, I'm a 4th year student. And as Kenzie was just talking about with Go BME, the organization that I'm part of, Engineering Graduate Student Council, partially funds Go BME. So EGSC has been around for about 12 years now. And we're here to serve all the graduate students by working closely with the deans and the faculty of the school in order to advocate for all the student concerns, as well as have student representation on the academic planning committee, in order to make sure that what the students are looking for during their academic education and their PhD program, it can be communicated to the deans and the faculty to ensure that that takes place. Also, in addition to working on academic life, we also sponsor the clubs like Go BME, and we also collaborate widely with organizations and schools outside of the engineering school. So we recently had an event called Find Your Founder, and that was paired up with the business school, where the engineering students and the business school students could meet and discuss startup ideas and kind of try to find people that they could potentially go forward with their idea and maybe make a company. Next slide, please. So EGSC is entirely run by all of the current graduate students at the engineering school. And here we show how each department is represented in the school. All of these students are elected onto the board, so that ensures that our program, biomedical engineering, as well as every other program, will have a voice in the student council, as well as speaking with the academic affairs committee. Next slide. So we're also involved in other key areas, which are shown here. So we help to improve the student life through, one of the ways is through the quality of life survey, where we conduct a school-wide survey that spans all aspects of life on campus, from teaching to security to fun and relaxation. So we then work hard on making these changes that we were able to solicit from the students with the feedback given by the survey. And we also, Kristen Henlin spoke about this earlier, but EGSC also works to offer some professional development. One way we do this is with the Professional Development Scholarship, where graduate students can apply for this and then use this award to attend professional development activities such as conferences or workshops that they might otherwise not be able to attend. Next slide, please. I'll hand it off to Divya.
Hi, so I'm a second year PhD, and I'm also part of EGSC and Go BME. And so as part of EGSC, we hold a lot of events for students. Things we've done in the past include boat cruises, end of semester socials, on-campus mixers. We go to Broadway shows and movies, sporting events, poker and game nights, and we just like to have like very regular events for students from all departments to kind of be able to come together and do things together. Currently with COVID, things have been a little bit more online, but we still are doing our best to make sure that there are events for people to be able to interact. And next slide. And we also fund a lot of the student organizations. And so there are a lot of graduate student organizations within engineering here that you can be a part of. So those include EGSC, Engineering Energy Club, Graduate Society of Women Engineers, ACM, ASCE. We have a Columbia Science Review and a Columbia Venture Community, Engineers Without Borders. So there's just a lot of different opportunities for people to get involved in things they're interested in and meet other graduate students who might not be particularly in your lab or in your department, but have the same interests. And yeah, so with that, I think give it back to Helen.
Thank you, Divya and Rebecca, Kenzie, and Kristen for showcasing our student life and student organizations with the school and the department. It definitely showcases another side of our program, aside from the research and the courseworks. So now I'm going to talk about the important stuff, the admissions requirement and the process that is in place for us to select PhD candidates. So the deadline for the fall admission is December 15th. Definitely submit your application by that deadline. Right after the deadline, our faculty will start reviewing applications. And so in terms of your application, we do require a copy of your official transcripts from every post-secondary institution you have attended. So for example, if you took a course or two during the summer outside of your undergrad institution at another university or college, we will require that transcript as well, even though those credits were transferred to your degree granting institution. The other thing worthy of mentioning is that for the spring 2021 and fall 2021 applications, the GRE test scores are optional. And so with that said, this year, in terms of standardized test scores, GRE is optional, but if your education was outside of the United States, Canada, or any country that their official language is not English, we would still require a language test unless you have completed your undergrad studies or master's studies in the United States or an English-speaking country. Then the language test will be exempted for you. In terms of our admission process-wise, typically we start inviting candidates for interviews between January and April. We definitely have a more focused interview day in late February. For fall 2021, the interview day that we have set in place is February 19th. Candidates who are selected for interviews by our Graduate Studies Committee and faculty members will be invited to attend the interview day. The interview day typically also includes our engineering and medicine symposium as well. So it's a great opportunity to learn about the different research each of our faculty does and also interact with students in the lab. So this year it will be virtual, but definitely it will be at the same caliber and excitement level as our previous interview days. So after the interviews are concluded, we typically roll out the first round of admission decisions in March. And then we'll have the first round of responses in early April, aligning with the national response deadline. But however, sometimes faculty will decide to interview more candidates or their funding situation or research opportunity arises. They may decide to recruit more students in place. And so we will have other interviews aside from the interview day in late February. But definitely all of our applicants will hear a final decision from us in May. So that's a very general overview of our admission process for selecting PhD candidates. Now, we also invite you to follow our social media on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We definitely are very active on these social media platforms. It showcases our department development opportunities that are open to the public as well. So definitely follow us on our social media platforms if you haven't already done so. And aside from today's info session, definitely feel free to contact myself if you have any questions regarding the application process or the program itself. My email is listed right here. So it's hkc2120@columbia.edu. Feel free to email me anytime. We can also set up a time to speak on one-on-one as well. Now, this will conclude our presentation for today, and we will open up the ground for questions. And so feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A box on the feature panel, and we're happy to address any questions you have today.